At Thanksgiving, sister's wedding was great. When's yours? I said, had mine. You got invitations. Dead silence. Dad, we never got them. I pulled out delivery receipts, all signed for. You threw them away. The turkey was dry. Of course it was. My mother never could get the timing right, but nobody ever told her because in our family, criticism was reserved exclusively for me. Sarah, honey, could you pass the cranberry sauce? My sister Amanda's voice dripped with a saccharine sweetness she'd perfected over 32 years of being the favorite child. Her diamond engagement ring caught the light as she reached across the table, practically blinding me with its ostentation. I handed her the sauce without comment. 16 months had passed since I'd last sat at this table, and already I remembered why I'd stayed away. So Amanda's wedding was absolutely spectacular, Mom gushed, launching into what had to be the 15th recap of the event I hadn't attended. The flowers alone cost more than most people's cars. And the venue? That country club has a 2-year waiting list, but Amanda's husband, has connections. Connor knows people everywhere, Amanda added, squeezing her husband's arm. He smiled that politician's smile he'd probably practiced in the mirror. It's one of the perks of being a successful litigation attorney. I carved into my dry turkey and said nothing. This was the game we played. They talked at me, not to me, and I was supposed to sit there and absorb it all like some kind of emotional punching bag wrapped in holiday sweaters. My father cleared his throat. The ceremony was beautiful, Sarah. You really missed something special. I'm sure it was lovely, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. Lovely? My mother's fork clattered against her plate. It was the wedding of the century. Everyone who matters in this town was there. The Hendersons, the Beaumonts, even Mayor Richardson showed up. Amanda's smile widened. We had 350 guests. The response rate was incredible, almost everyone we invited actually came. I took a sip of wine and waited. The trap was being set, I could feel it. 27 years of being the disappointment had taught me to recognize the pattern. Speaking of weddings, Amanda said, her tone shifting to that particular frequency of condescension she reserved for me. When are you going to settle down, Sarah? You're not getting any younger, you know. There it was. Mom jumped in before I could respond. She's been dating that man for 3 years now. What's his name again? James? John? Marcus, I corrected quietly. Right, Marcus. What does he do again? Something with computers? He's a software engineer at Microsoft. Amanda laughed, a tinkling sound like breaking glass. Oh, that's right. The tech guy. Does he even own a suit? Connor chuckled dutifully at his wife's joke. My father studied his plate with intense concentration, as he always did when the conversation turned cruel. He never participated in the attacks, but he never stopped them either. In some ways, his silence hurt worse than their words. When's the big day, anyway? Amanda continued, emboldened by her audience. Or is he dragging his feet? Men can sense when a woman is desperate, you know. It turns them off. I set down my fork carefully. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. This was it. The moment I'd been simultaneously dreading and anticipating for 6 months. Actually, I had my wedding already, I said. The silence that fell over the table was so complete I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. 4 faces stared at me with varying expressions of shock. Amanda's mouth had actually fallen open. You. What? Mom finally managed. I got married. 6 months ago. June 15th, to be exact. That's impossible, Amanda sputtered. You didn't, we would have. You got invitations, I said calmly, reaching for my wine glass. All of you did. My father found his voice. Sarah, we never received any invitations. We would have come if you received them. I pulled out my phone, fingers moving across the screen with practiced precision. Let me show you something. I'd been carrying these screenshots for months, waiting for this exact moment. The first one showed the certified mail tracking information. 4 packages, 4 addresses, all signed for on April 23rd. See this? I turned the phone toward my father. Signature confirmation. Someone at this address signed for all 4 invitations. I zoomed in on the signature line. The scrawl was unmistakably Amanda's. The color drained from my sister's face. That could be anything, Mom said quickly, but her voice wavered. I swiped to the next screenshot. This is the email confirmation from the stationery company. Custom invitations, ordered in February, delivered in April. And this another swipe, is the credit card statement showing I paid for Priority Mail Express with signature confirmation to ensure they arrived quickly. Amanda? My father's voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath. Did you sign for mail addressed to your mother and me? I don't remember, maybe Amanda's composure was cracking like old paint. Let me refresh your memory. I was surprised by how calm I sounded, given that my pulse was racing. April 23rd was a Tuesday. You came by to drop off Mom's birthday present early because you were leaving for that conference in Denver. You offered to grab the mail while you were here. How could you possibly remember that? Connor demanded, his lawyer instincts kicking in to defend his wife. Because I called Mom that afternoon to confirm she'd received the invitation. She said no mail had come except some catalogs. I found that strange since the tracking showed delivery at 11:47 a.m. When I checked the signature later, I recognized Amanda's handwriting immediately. Amanda's face had gone from white to red. You had me investigated? I made a phone call to the post office. Hardly the FBI. I took another sip of wine, grateful that years of theater classes in high school had taught me how to project confidence I didn't entirely feel. But you still haven't answered Dad's question. Did you sign for our mail? This is ridiculous, Amanda said, standing abruptly. I don't have to sit here and be accused. Sit down. My father's voice cracked like a whip. I'd never heard him use that tone before. Amanda sat. He turned to me, his face a mixture of confusion and something that might have been hurt. Why wouldn't you tell us? Even if we somehow missed the invitations, you could have called. This was the question I'd been preparing for. The one I'd rehearsed in therapy for weeks before deciding to come to this dinner. I did call, I said. Multiple times. The first time was May 3rd, after 2 weeks of radio silence. Mom, you told me you were busy planning Amanda's engagement party and you'd call me back. You didn't. Mom opened her mouth to protest, but I continued. I called again on May 10th. Got the voicemail. Left a message saying I was getting worried because the wedding was only 5 weeks away and I hadn't heard from anyone. Nobody called back. I pulled up my call log. I'd been backing up my phone records for months specifically for this moment. May 17th, called Dad's cell. Straight to voicemail. May 19th, texted the family group chat, which I notice I'm no longer part of, by the way. May 24th, called the house line 3 times. May 28th, sent an email to everyone. We never got an email, Mom insisted. Because Amanda has access to the family email account and she deleted it. I looked at my sister, who had gone very still. Just like she deleted the one I sent in April right after mailing the invitations. You can't prove that, Amanda whispered. I pulled the email account activity log. Marcus walked me through how to check it. Turns out when you're the one who set up the family email account years ago, you still have the recovery access. I looked directly at Amanda. The email was opened on April 25th at 8:32 p.m. from this house's IP address, then immediately deleted. Permanently. Someone didn't want anyone else to see it. Connor's expression had shifted from defensive to calculating. As a lawyer, he understood exactly what this evidence meant. Sarah, Mom said, and for the first time in years, she sounded uncertain. Why didn't you just drive over here? If you really wanted us at your wedding, you could have. I live in Seattle, Mom. That's a 3-hour drive each way. I made that drive 17 times in the 2 years before I moved. How many times did any of you visit me? 0. The number hung in the air between us. You came for Christmas, Dad said weakly. I drove here for Christmas. For Thanksgiving. For Easter. For Mom's birthday, Amanda's birthday, your birthday. I came for Amanda's engagement party, her bridal shower, and her bachelorette weekend. I rearranged my work schedule, spent hundreds on gas, and slept on that lumpy sofa bed in the guest room that smells like mothballs. My voice remained steady, but I could feel the years of accumulated hurt crystallizing into words. And you know what? Nobody ever asked me about my life. Not once did anyone say, "Hey Sarah, how's your job going?" Or "Are you happy in Seattle?" It was always about Amanda. That's not fair, Amanda said, but her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? When's my birthday, Amanda? She blinked. What? My birthday. What day is it? Silence. It's October 12th, I said. I turned 33 this year. Nobody called. Nobody texted. I didn't even get a Facebook message. We've all been so busy, Mom started. I called you on your birthday, Mom. Like I do every year. I sent flowers. Expensive ones, from that boutique place downtown that you love. I remembered. Why couldn't any of you remember me? My father's shoulders sagged. For the first time, he looked old. The wedding was beautiful, I continued, my voice softer now. The anger was draining away, leaving something hollow in its wake. Marcus and I got married in a little chapel on the coast. Just us, his parents, his sister, his brother, and about 15 of our closest friends. 22 people total. Small, intimate, perfect. His mother helped me into my dress. His father walked me down the aisle when it became clear mine wouldn't be there. We exchanged vows we'd written ourselves, and afterward, we had dinner at this amazing seafood restaurant overlooking the water. I pulled up a photo on my phone. Marcus and I, both laughing, my veil blowing in the ocean breeze. I looked happy. Actually, genuinely happy. We honeymooned in Hawaii for 2 weeks. Maui. It was incredible. I swiped through photos, sunsets, beaches, the two of us snorkeling, hiking, simply existing in a space where nobody compared me to anyone else. Best 3 weeks of my life, actually. The wedding and the honeymoon. Mom reached for the phone, but I pulled it back. I'm not done. Sarah, please, I need to say this. I've needed to say it for years. I looked at each of them in turn. When Amanda got engaged, Mom immediately started planning. Remember? You called vendors that same night. You started a Pinterest board. You threw yourself into making her day perfect. Do you have any idea how that felt? Watching you care so much about her happiness while treating mine like an afterthought? We love you both equally, Mom protested, but the words rang hollow. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it's always been the Amanda show. Amanda the cheerleader. Amanda the homecoming queen. Amanda the sorority president. Amanda who graduated summa cum laude. Amanda who married the successful lawyer. Meanwhile, I'm just Sarah. Regular Sarah with her regular job and her regular life in Seattle where nobody ever visits. You never seem to want the same things Amanda wanted, Dad said quietly. So that made me less worthy of your attention? Of your love? I shook my head. I got my master's degree in environmental science. I work for a nonprofit that's actually making a difference in water conservation policy. I bought my own condo, no help from anyone. I built a life I'm proud of. But none of you ever asked me about any of it. Do you even know what I do all day? More silence. I analyze water usage patterns and develop sustainability models for municipalities, I said. It's not glamorous. It won't make me rich. But legislation I helped research was adopted by 37 cities last year. Millions of people now have better access to clean water because of work I contributed to. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the life I built. We're proud of you too, Mom said, but she couldn't meet my eyes. Are you? Then why did Amanda throw away my wedding invitations? All eyes turned to my sister. She'd been silent for several minutes, her face cycling through various shades of red and white. Now she looked cornered. I didn't, she started, then stopped. Okay, fine. I took them? But you don't understand. Then explain it to me. Everything was supposed to be about my wedding. The words burst out of her like a champagne cork. For once, I was supposed to be the center of attention without you trying to steal my thunder. I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. Steal your thunder? Amanda, I've been invisible for years. How could I possibly? You always do this. You act all meek and modest, but then you pull these stunts to make people feel sorry for you. Oh, poor Sarah, nobody pays attention to her. It's manipulation. I sent invitations to my wedding. How is that manipulation? The timing. Amanda was on her feet again, her voice rising to a pitch that probably disturbed the neighbors. My wedding was in September. You scheduled yours for June. You were trying to upstage me by getting married first. The logic was so twisted I almost couldn't process it. Amanda, you got engaged in January. You'd been dating Connor for 5 years before that. Marcus proposed to me in December, and we wanted a summer wedding because we both loved the coast in June. Your wedding date had nothing to do with mine. Bullshit. You've always been jealous of me. Jealous? The word tasted strange. Of what, exactly? Of everything I have. The perfect husband, the big house, the respect in this community. I don't want any of that, I said, and I realized I meant it. I don't want a big house in this town. I don't want to be on the charity board circuit or join the country club. I wanted my family at my wedding. That's all. I wanted you there to see me happy. Well, you should have tried harder to make sure we got the invitations, Mom said, and I could see her choosing sides in real time. This was it. The moment where they'd close ranks around Amanda, rewrite history to make me the villain, and continue on as if this conversation had never happened. I'd seen this movie before. I knew how it ended. But this time, I had a choice about whether to stick around for the credits. You're right, I said, standing and gathering my purse. I should have tried harder. I should have shown up at your door and forced you to acknowledge me. But you know what? I'm tired of trying. I'm tired of being the one who always reaches out, always makes the effort, always gets slapped down for it. Sarah, sit down, Dad said. We're not done here. Actually, we are. I came here tonight because some part of me still hoped that maybe, just maybe, you'd care that you missed my wedding. That you'd be upset you weren't there. But you're not upset about missing it? You're upset that I'm calling out Amanda for throwing away the invitations. She's your sister, Mom said. Family forgives? Does it? Because I've been forgiving you all for years, and I'm not sure I've ever received the same courtesy. I pulled on my coat. I forgave you for missing my college graduation because Amanda had a sorority event. I forgave you for canceling our Christmas visit the year Marcus and I first started dating because Amanda needed help moving. I forgave you for spending my birthday helping Amanda pick out wedding venues. I've done nothing but forgive. Where are you going? Dad asked. Back to Seattle. Back to my husband, my home, and my life. The one I built without any of you. You're being dramatic, Amanda said, but her voice shook slightly. No, I'm being done. There's a difference. I headed for the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I really did want you there. All of you. Marcus's mom kept asking me why my family wasn't coming, and I kept making excuses because I couldn't admit that my own sister had sabotaged me. His family felt so bad they tried to include me extra, which just made it more obvious that mine didn't care enough to show up. We didn't know, Dad said, and I heard something crack in his voice. You could have known. You had my number. My email. My address. If you'd wanted to be part of my life, you would have been. Amanda didn't actually prevent that. She just gave you permission to do what you were already doing, treating me like I didn't matter. I opened the door. Cold November air rushed in, carrying the scent of dying leaves and coming winter. Sarah, wait. My father stood, one hand outstretched. Please. Let's talk about this. We've been talking. Or rather, I've been talking and you've been making excuses. I stepped onto the porch. You know what the saddest part is? Marcus asked me if I wanted to invite you to Thanksgiving at his parents' place. His family wanted to meet mine. I said no because I knew you'd all be here, doing this. Celebrating Amanda. I came anyway because I thought maybe I owed you one more chance. I was wrong. You can't just walk away from your family, Mom said from the doorway. Watch me. I made it halfway to my car before Amanda's voice stopped me. Sarah. Sarah, wait. She'd run out without a coat, hugging herself against the cold. For a moment, she looked like the girl I'd shared a room with for 18 years. The one who used to braid my hair and let me borrow her clothes, before everything became a competition I never agreed to enter. I'm sorry, she said, and to my surprise, tears were streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. You're right. I took the invitations. I threw them away. I told myself I'd just hide them until after my wedding, that I'd tell everyone afterward, but then. She gulped air. Then it was easier to just pretend they never came. Easier than admitting what I'd done. Why? I asked. Just tell me why. Because you were always the good one, she said, and her voice broke. Everyone always said it. Sarah's so smart. Sarah's so dedicated. Sarah doesn't need all that attention. But I did need it. I needed to feel special, and the only way I could was by making sure you weren't there to be compared to. That's insane, Amanda. I was never competing with you. I know. That's what made it worse. You didn't even try, and people still loved you. She wiped her eyes roughly. I'm the worst sister in the world. I ruined your wedding. I can't take that back. No, you can't. We stood there in the cold, the distance between us both 3 feet and unbridgeable. Can you ever forgive me? She whispered. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe someday. But not today. Today I'm too angry and too hurt, and I need to go home to the person who actually shows up for me. I got in my car and drove away, watching my childhood home disappear in the rearview mirror. My phone started buzzing before I even hit the highway, calls and texts from all of them, probably trying to process what had just happened. I turned it to silent. Marcus was waiting up when I got home, even though it was past midnight. He took one look at my face and pulled me into his arms. That bad? He asked. Worse. But also better. I think I finally said everything I needed to say. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me too. I pulled back to look at him. Your family still doing Thanksgiving tomorrow? Of course. Mom's already asking when we'll get there. Then that's our family now, I said. The one that actually wants us. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces around that table. The shock. The denial. The way Mom's expression had shuddered when she realized she couldn't rewrite this particular narrative. I kept replaying Amanda's confession on the porch, searching for sincerity in her tears. Had she meant it? Or was it just another performance, damage control to salvage her image as the golden child? Marcus found me at 2 a.m, sitting on our balcony despite the cold, wrapped in a blanket and staring at nothing. Can't turn your brain off? He asked, settling into the chair beside me. I keep thinking about what Amanda said. About me being the good one. How does that even make sense? They treated her like royalty my entire life. People's internal narratives don't always match reality. He reached over and took my hand. She probably felt pressure to maintain that perfect image. When you're put on a pedestal, the fear of falling off can be consuming. That doesn't excuse what she did. No, it doesn't. But it might explain it. He squeezed my fingers gently. The question is, what do you want to happen next? I'd been avoiding thinking about that. The confrontation had been the goal for so long that I hadn't planned beyond it. What did come next? Could I actually walk away from my family forever? Did I even want to? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to never speak to them again. But another part. I trailed off, struggling to articulate the feeling. I spent so many years trying to earn their love. Maybe I need to prove to myself that I can exist without it. You already do exist without it. You've been doing that for years. Have I though? Or have I just been pretending while secretly hoping they'd wake up one day and see me? The admission hurt coming out. Every achievement, every milestone, some part of me was still performing for an audience that wasn't watching. Marcus was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. When we got engaged, you cried. Happy tears, you said. But I remember you also said something else. You said, maybe now they'll take me seriously. I had said that. I'd forgotten, but the memory came flooding back. We'd been at the restaurant where he proposed, champagne bubbles still tickling my nose, and those words had slipped out before I could stop them. I wanted them at our wedding because I thought it would finally prove I was worth showing up for, I said slowly, the realization crystallizing as I spoke. But they didn't come, and you know what? The wedding was perfect anyway. We were happy anyway. I didn't need them there to validate my joy. No, you didn't. So why does it still hurt so much? Because you're grieving, Marcus said simply. You're mourning the family you should have had. The parents who should have celebrated both their daughters equally. The sister who should have been your best friend instead of your rival. That's a real loss, Sarah. You're allowed to feel it. I let myself cry then, properly cry, for the first time since leaving that house. Not angry tears or frustrated tears, but the deep, aching sobs of genuine grief. Marcus held me through it, not trying to fix anything or make it better, just being present. When I finally stopped, wrung out and exhausted, he asked if I wanted hot chocolate. I nodded, and he disappeared inside. Through the glass door, I watched him move around our kitchen, our space, that we'd chosen together, filled with things that made us happy rather than things that looked impressive to others. A kitchen where we'd hosted friends who actually cared about us. Where we'd cooked meals and laughed and built a life. They'd missed it all. And suddenly, sitting there wrapped in my blanket at 2 a.m, I realized that was their loss, not mine. Marcus returned with 2 mugs topped with whipped cream and chocolate shavings. He'd even added the peppermint sticks I loved, the ones I discovered during our honeymoon at a little cafe in Lahaina. I love you, I said. For so many reasons, but right now especially for remembering the peppermint sticks. I pay attention, he said with a small smile. It's what people do when they love someone. Such a simple statement, but it carried the weight of everything my family had failed to do. Paying attention. Remembering. Showing up. The basic building blocks of love that I'd been starved for without fully realizing it. Your mom asked me something last week, Marcus said, stirring his hot chocolate. She asked if your family had ever met me before the wedding. When I said no, she looked so sad. She said any parent would be desperate to meet the person who made their child light up the way you do when you talk about our life together. My throat tightened. She said that? She did. And then she said that their loss was her gain, because now she got to have you as a daughter. She meant it too. My mom doesn't say things she doesn't mean. I know. I'd noticed that about Margaret within the first hour of meeting her. She was warm but honest, affectionate but direct. Everything my own mother wasn't. They want to do a second reception for us, Marcus continued. Nothing big, just family and a few close friends. A chance to celebrate with people who actually care. My parents want to host it, maybe in the spring when the weather's better. What do you think? The idea should have felt wrong somehow, like a consolation prize. But it didn't. It felt like a gift. I think that sounds perfect, I said. Can we do it at that venue by the lake? The one with the big windows? Already checked. They have availability in May. Of course he had. Because that's what partners did, they anticipated needs and made plans and showed up. Every single time. We sat on the balcony until dawn started painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Somewhere in those quiet hours, something fundamental shifted inside me. The anger remained, and the hurt, but they no longer felt like they were consuming me from the inside out. They become something I carried rather than something that carried me. Marcus's family Thanksgiving was everything my family's gathering had not been. Loud, yes, but with laughter rather than tension. His sister Emma greeted me with a crushing hug and an immediate demand to see more wedding photos. His brother Jake tried to teach me the family card game that apparently everyone learned at age 5. Margaret fussed over whether I was eating enough, and Marcus's father Thomas insisted on hearing all about my work, genuinely interested in water conservation policy in a way my own parents had never been. So you're telling me that the algorithm you helped develop saved Los Angeles 30 million gallons of water in 6 months? Thomas leaned forward, eyes sharp with interest. That's remarkable. How did you account for seasonal variation in usage patterns? I explained the methodology, warming to the subject as I always did when someone actually cared to listen. He asked intelligent questions, challenged some of my assumptions in a way that made me think rather than feel defensive, and by the end of dinner had me promising to send him links to our published research. You've got a brilliant wife, he told Marcus as we cleared plates. I hope you know that. I do, Marcus replied, catching my eye across the table. Trust me, I do. Later, while helping Margaret with dishes despite her protests, she brought up my family situation delicately. Marcus mentioned things were difficult with your parents at Thanksgiving, she said, scrubbing a roasting pan with more force than necessary. I hope I'm not overstepping, but I want you to know that whatever happened, it doesn't change anything here. You're family to us now. Not because you married Marcus, but because of who you are. I had to set down the plate I was drying before I dropped it. Thank you. That means more than you know. I'm a mother, Margaret said simply. I can't imagine treating my children the way yours treated you. Emma told me what happened with the invitations. That your own sister. She shook her head. I won't speak ill of people I've never met, but I will say this, their failure to see your worth doesn't diminish your value. It only reveals their blindness. I'm still processing all of it, I admitted. Part of me wants to cut them off completely. Part of me feels guilty for even considering that. Guilt is a powerful tool, especially when it's been used against you your whole life. Margaret rinsed the pan and set it in the drying rack. But here's what I learned raising 3 kids, sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes people hurt us not because they don't love us, but because they don't know how to love us properly. And we're allowed to protect ourselves from that, even when it comes from family. My dad called yesterday, I said. Just to check in, he said. It was awkward. Neither of us knew what to say. First conversations after big truths usually are. She handed me another plate to dry. The question isn't whether it was comfortable. It's whether he's willing to do the uncomfortable work of actually changing. Words are easy. Consistent action is hard. 3 days later, I got an email from my father. A long one, full of apologies and realizations and promises to do better. A long one, full of apologies and realizations and promises to do better. He asked if we could talk, really talk, about starting over. I wrote back and said maybe, eventually, but I needed time. He said he understood. Amanda sent a Facebook message. I didn't read it. I turned off notifications for the family group chat I'd been re-added to, probably at Dad's insistence. Connor sent a LinkedIn request that I declined. Mom didn't reach out at all. That hurt less than I expected. The silence from my mother became its own kind of answer. Days turned into weeks, and while my father's weekly calls continued, stilted and careful, but present, Mom remained conspicuously absent. I imagined her in that house, reorganizing the same closets she'd been organizing my whole life, hosting her book club, attending her charity luncheons, existing in a world where uncomfortable truths could be avoided through sheer force of routine. Work became my refuge in those weeks. I threw myself into a new project analyzing drought patterns in the Southwest, grateful for problems that had clear data sets and logical solutions. My colleague Jennifer noticed the increased intensity. You're here before me and leaving after me, she commented one evening, poking her head into my office at 7 p.m. Everything okay? Family stuff, I said vaguely. Just needed the distraction. She settled into the chair across from my desk without invitation, a habit I normally appreciated. Want to talk about it? And surprisingly, I did. I told her everything, the wedding, the invitations, the Thanksgiving confrontation. Jennifer listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from shock to anger to something like understanding. My sister and I didn't speak for 2 years, she said when I finished. Different reason, she borrowed money and never paid it back, then acted like I was the villain for mentioning it. But the dynamic was similar. She was the favorite, I was the afterthought. Our parents always took her side. How did it resolve? It didn't, really. She eventually apologized, and we have a cordial relationship now, but it's surface level. We'll never be close like we were as kids. I had to grieve that friendship, except that the sister I wanted didn't exist anymore. Maybe never existed in the way I remembered. Does it still hurt? Sometimes. Mostly at holidays or when I see other sisters who are actually friends. But I've built my own family, my partner, our friends, my chosen people. They show up for me in ways my blood relatives never did. She stood, stretching. Give yourself time to figure out what you want this to look like going forward. And don't let anyone guilt you into forgiving faster than you're ready to. Her words echoed Margaret's, this common wisdom from women who'd learned to set boundaries the hard way. I wondered how many people carried these wounds, smiling through family gatherings while slowly bleeding from invisible cuts. That weekend, Marcus and I hosted a dinner party. Nothing fancy, just 6 friends, good wine, and the beef bourguignon recipe I'd been perfecting for months. Our friend Rachel brought her new girlfriend, and our neighbor Tom showed up with homemade bread that put my grocery store rolls to shame. We ate and laughed and played charades until midnight, and nobody asked me a single question about when I was having kids or why I hadn't visited home lately. This is nice, I told Marcus as we cleaned up afterward, both of us pleasantly tipsy and happy tired. This feels like family. It is family, he said, loading the dishwasher with slightly less precision than usual. We get to choose this. Blood doesn't have a monopoly on love. I thought about that as I washed the wine glasses by hand, watching soap bubbles catch the light. My parents had always treated family like an obligation, a performance to be maintained regardless of the underlying dysfunction. But what if family was actually about connection? About showing up and paying attention and making space for each other's joy? The email from Amanda came on a Tuesday morning. Not through Facebook this time, but to my work address, which meant she'd actually looked up where I worked and found my contact information. The subject line read simply, "Please read this." I stared at it for 20 minutes before opening it. Sarah, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I wouldn't want to hear from me either. But my therapist says I need to make amends as part of my healing process, and while I know this is ultimately for me, I'm hoping maybe it helps you too. I've been thinking a lot about why I did what I did. The easy answer is jealousy, but it's more complicated than that. Growing up, I always felt like I had to be perfect. Mom and Dad never said it explicitly, but I absorbed this message that my worth was tied to my achievements. Good grades, pretty dresses, the right boyfriend, the perfect wedding, it was all part of this scorecard I was trying to fill out to prove I deserved their love. You never seemed to need that validation the same way. You just existed, confidently, in your own space. You didn't care if you weren't prom queen or if your major wasn't impressive to their friends. And somehow, that made you threatening to me. Because if you could be loved without performing, what did that say about all my performing? When your invitation arrived, I had this moment of panic. Your wedding was going to happen first, and it was going to be small and intimate and real, everything mine wasn't. Mine was this massive production for 300 people, most of whom I barely knew. I'd spent a year planning it with Mom, and somewhere along the way, it stopped being about Connor and me and became about proving something to people whose opinions shouldn't have mattered. I convinced myself that if I just delayed everyone finding out about your wedding until after mine, then I could maintain the illusion of going first, of being first, of winning a competition that only existed in my head. And then afterward, I told myself I'd come clean, but the longer I waited, the harder it got. Until it was easier to just pretend it never happened. I know this doesn't fix anything. I know I robbed you of having your family there on one of the most important days of your life. I know I hurt you in a way that might be unforgivable. And I know I hurt Mom and Dad too, by making them miss it and then letting them believe they'd somehow failed to receive the invitations. I'm in therapy twice a week now. Working through why I need external validation so desperately, why I see everything as a competition, why I can't just be happy for other people without making it about me. It's hard work. I'm not enjoying it. But I'm doing it because I don't want to be this person anymore. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to respond to this email. But I needed you to know that I see what I did. I understand it was wrong. And I'm truly, deeply sorry. I hope you're happy with Marcus. I hope your life in Seattle is everything you want it to be. And I hope someday, maybe, we can find a way back to being sisters. Even if that takes years. Even if it never happens. Amanda. I read it 3 times, parsing each sentence for sincerity, for manipulation, for any hint of the sister I used to know before everything became complicated. The words seemed genuine, but Amanda had always been good with words. I forwarded it to Marcus without comment. Then to Jennifer. Then, after hesitating for nearly an hour, to my father. His response came within minutes. She's trying, Sarah. That's all I can tell you. Whether it's enough is up to you. Was she trying? Or was this just another performance, therapy speak delivered in the service of her own healing without real consideration for the damage she'd caused? I couldn't tell, and that uncertainty was its own kind of torment. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, a package arrived at my door. Inside was a wedding card, unopened, addressed to my parents. My invitation. One of the 4. A note from my father said he found it while helping Amanda clean out some storage boxes from the garage. She'd hidden them all there, apparently hoping they'd be forgotten among the holiday decorations and old tax documents. I showed Marcus. We looked at the elegant calligraphy, the carefully chosen words inviting my family to celebrate our love. "Should we keep it?" he asked. "No," I said. "Let's put it in the album anyway. As a reminder. Of what they missed? Of what we built without them." Christmas came and went without any visit to my hometown. New Year's too. My father called weekly, short conversations where we talked about weather and work and carefully avoided anything substantial. It was something, I supposed. A start, maybe. In February, I got a voicemail from Amanda. She was in therapy, working through her issues. She understood if I never wanted to speak to her again, but she was trying to be better. She hoped I was happy. I was. March brought news that Mom had fallen and broken her hip. Dad called, voice rough with exhaustion, asking if I could come help. I thought about it for a long time, longer than I probably should have, before making the drive down. Not because I'd forgiven everything, but because I was choosing to show up despite not being asked properly for years. When I walked into that hospital room, Mom cried. Real tears, not the performative kind she'd always been so good at. She said she was sorry for not being the mother I needed. She said she'd been thinking about all the ways she'd failed me, lying in that hospital bed with nothing to do but reflect. Maybe she meant it. Maybe it was the pain medication talking. I didn't know, and I surprised myself by discovering I didn't need to know right away. "I'm here," I told her. "That's enough for today." Amanda showed up that evening. We sat on opposite sides of Mom's bed, not speaking directly to each other but not completely ignoring each other either. Small steps. I stayed for 3 days, helping Dad manage the house and dealing with insurance companies and medication schedules. On the last day, he hugged me tight and thanked me for coming. "You didn't have to," he said. "After everything." "I know. But I wanted to." I pulled back and looked at him squarely. "I'm not coming back fully, Dad. This doesn't erase what happened. But I'm not disappearing either. We're going to figure out something in between." He nodded, understanding in his eyes for maybe the first time. The drive back to Seattle felt different. Lighter somehow, like I'd set down a weight I'd been carrying so long I'd forgotten it was there. I called Marcus from a rest stop, telling him I was on my way home. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Like myself," I said. Finally. And that, more than anything else, was worth celebrating.